of Orlando, Florida, the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski, your neighbor, your political exorcist, here to cast out all the groupthink across the political aisles. We are going to work to solve problems on this program live each and every day, Monday through Thursday, and across the internet through my articles. We do it as neighbors because we don't believe in hive minds and groupthink. Our program and our project here on A Neighbor's Choice is all about defending the underdogs, the misfits, the scapegoats. We believe that society is best when society honors the individual as the cornerstone, not the collective. And that once we see that life is precious and that human life is so sacred that you should not touch innocent, nonviolent people because of expediency, because of whatever problems are going on in a societal framework, that every human being life is precious. And that includes people that we put in prison. That if there's no victim, there's no crime. If it's a nonviolent act, don't engage in violence. We believe in that for all human beings. And that informs the stories we tell, the people we meet on this program, neighbors just like you. And so it's a real treat for me now to have Abby Johnson. Abby Johnson is the inspiration behind the new big movie coming out this week, Unplanned. It's in theaters everywhere. It's made by the makers of God's Not Dead. And Abby was a former Planned Parenthood worker who had a dramatic conversion after seeing a ultrasound of an abortion. She changed her whole mind. She had kind of like a Paul of Tarsus moment where she's on the road to Damascus. So Abby, thanks for joining me on the program.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I saw your story, and we even saw the trailer as we were preparing show prep today on the television here, so it's exciting that we are seeing the real woman behind the story. It's such a treat.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
I wanted to dive in, kind of why this movie happened. What was your framework when you were approached to be involved in this movie? Give us some insight from your perspective. It's not every day that we get to talk to a neighbor who has a movie made about her own life.
Yeah. So I was approached via email by two directors, the two guys that wrote and directed God's Not Dead 1 and 2. And this was about 5 years ago, and they had just asked me if I had ever considered turning my book, Unplanned, into a film. And honestly, I'd not given it any serious thought before. I'd had people ask before, but just never something I really considered. But these two guys flew down to my home in Texas, and we met with them over a weekend. And by the end of the weekend, we just felt really certain that this was something that God was, in fact, calling us to do, to be a part of, and to really share his story. And so we signed the deal, and now it's coming out on Friday.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and it's in theaters. We're here in Orlando, but we have an audience that goes out to the whole country and online, on YouTube, social media, and various publications like Daily Caller and Town Hall that cover my work. And so we want everybody to take a look at this movie. It's a family-friendly movie, although it did get an R rating, but it's not what it seems. Was that some kind of political decision that the MPAA made?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely think there was an agenda there from the MPAA, but I don't think the irony is lost on anyone that a 14-year-old girl can go get an abortion without her parents' consent, but she can't watch a film about abortion without her parents' consent. So we definitely all see that irony, but honestly, it's sort of like the MPAA stumbled backwards into the truth by admitting that abortion is an act of violence and that it is disturbing. And we do feel like this film is best seen with parents. if a teenager goes to see it, because they definitely need to be having a dialogue about what is being shown in the film.
Mm-hmm. Now, you worked for Planned Parenthood. Tell people what you did for that organization and how that went.
Sure. I was an abortion clinic director with Planned Parenthood for the affiliate in Houston. I was there for 8 years. Left in October of 2009 after, a few things had happened, but ultimately I ended up leaving after witnessing a live ultrasound-guided abortion procedure where I saw a 13-week-old baby fight and struggle for his life against the abortion instruments. And I knew then that I couldn't be a part of abortion or that industry any longer. So I left, and ever since then have been working to really expose what's taking place inside of abortion facilities, and also trying to help facilitate healing for those who have been wounded or touched by abortion in some way.
Now, there's some scenes in the movie where it shows some of the kind of more hostile, pro-life, belligerent kind of protesters. And I think that's important to contrast with the message of your movie, which is not preachy and judgmental, but rather empathetic, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a story of my experience. And so when I worked at Planned Parenthood, there were definitely two groups of people who were out on the sidewalk. One group was very aggressive, yelling at women, calling them murderers, baby killers. Then there was another group that was very peaceful. They had brochures. They were talking to women about their options, offering to get them to pregnancy resource centers in the area so that they could have free services. So there's definitely a contrast there. And, we recognize that this can still be a problem in the pro-life movement, that there's good and bad on both sides of this fence. Right? So there's a lot of people who are well-intentioned but are ineffective or have misguided compassion. And so we really wanted to tell that story accurately and to be as honest and transparent as possible.
Very good. And I think that's something in my own work that I've tried to be consistent, which is if conservatives or independents or whoever, moderates or whatever, if they're passionate about pro-life, they have to be compassionate about life for all of its stages so that their case is much, much more persuasive for the public, not being so belligerent for wars that are unnecessary and sanctions that are unnecessary and, victimless crime laws that are so harsh. I've got a lot of friends that call into the show and they have life sentences for just not even, just petty, silly things that really don't deserve life sentences that related to drugs. But having a principle of life, a whole life ethic, as it's called, I think is critical, and not having a kind of a scapegoating like you guys are nasty or you guys are the monsters or you're the killers, but understanding that a lot of people are confused and that there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of emotional entanglement involved in this decision.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion. Society has not given an honest perspective of what abortion actually is. They've really normalized abortion, sanitized it in a way that has become dishonest. And so we're dealing with a lot of just sheer ignorance on the topic of abortion. And one of the things that I hear from people who are pro-life that I think makes me the most aggravated is when people will say, well, I just don't understand how a woman could ever have an abortion. And I'm thinking, you don't? I mean, I do, because for so long, I mean, the generation now that's having abortions, they've grown up with abortion as a viable solution to an unplanned pregnancy. They've never known a time where abortion wasn't available to them. And so I think it's really easy for us to say, well, I don't understand, or I don't get it, or how could they do that? But we need to have more understanding, and we need to understand that, everybody comes at this from a very different experience. So while abortion is always wrong, the way that we reach out to women who are in crisis absolutely matters.
We're speaking with Abby Johnson, the star, the real-life star of the new movie Unplanned, unplannedfilm.com. I'm David Gornoski. Hold on just a moment. More with Abby in just a second.
Let's dance in style, let's dance for a while.
We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit. We groan inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski, your neighbor, and I'm speaking with Abby Johnson, who is the real-life inspiration for the new movie Unplanned. It's in films everywhere this weekend. You got to go see it. Check it out, unplannedfilm.com, to see what theaters are playing it and get involved. See the movie. It's really exciting. And Abby was once a director of Planned Parenthood in Houston, and now has kind of had a Paul moment where she saw the real life victim at the heart of this issue. And I think it is a Paul moment because Paul was zealous for a cause in his own time. St. Paul was going and persecuting Christians because he truly believed in his heart that the people of the way, as Jesus' movement was called at the time, were a threat to who God really was. And so in his zeal, he went through the motions, and it wasn't until Jesus confronted him and said, why are you persecuting me? And when he was confronted with the voice of the victim, it's what allowed him to renounce his entire way of life, re-examine it took him days to re-examine, and then come out on another way. And I think you kind of had a similar experience, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very profound experience, but also God was very bold with me in that moment.
How was he bold?
I mean, he sort of knocked me across the head with this 2x4. Like, hey, look at what you're doing. Look at what you're a part of. And that's what I tell people. When God wants to change your life, He can make it happen in the blink of an eye. And that's really what happened for me. I mean, the veil was lifted, and I could just see so clearly what I had not been able to see before.
And your website is at abbyjohnson.org, right?
Yeah, that's abbyjohnson.org.
Yeah, and so what do you do now? You're involved in a lot of activism. You're on the ground helping women find alternatives to abortion. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I also run an organization called And Then There Were None, and we are a nonprofit that seeks to help end abortion from the inside out. So we help abortion clinic workers transition out of their jobs and get into a path of healing and get into new lines of work. And we've been doing this for a little over 6 years, and we have had almost 500 abortion clinic workers come through our organization and find those healing resources. And so about 70% of these women have had abortions themselves. So it really is a wounded population that's even working inside these abortion facilities. And we have to care about them as well. We have to want what's best for them. And so we're really trying to help them find what that is.
We're speaking with Abby Johnson. She's the real-life inspiration behind the new movie. Unplannedfilm.com is the website. Go check out the movie Unplanned. I wanted to ask you about your time in Planned Parenthood. There was the expose where they were showing with David Daleiden that there was selling baby parts. Did you see any of that or evidence of that going on when you were involved with the organization?
Yeah, we participated in that program at the affiliate where I worked.
And what did that entail? How was that done? Was that open, or was it like a side thing, or how did that?
I mean, we were very honest about the program. I mean, there was never anything secretive about it.
Right.
we had it on our website for everybody to see. We felt like it was a altruistic thing to do, to sort of turn something negative into something positive. So, I mean, as far as, they believe that, we're helping to cure Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and all these different things with these stem cells.
How big of the baby? How old were the babies? Was there a limit to how old they could be that you could be used to harvest tissue or organs, or how did that work?
No, we just sent the whole baby.
Yeah.
So it didn't, as long as there were identifiable, for the most part, as long as there were identifiable parts. So I would say starting at probably about 8 or 9 weeks, we would send the whole baby into these cell tech companies.
Up to what? How old would the infant, like up to delivery, or?
No.
I don't see it. Yeah.
Our clinic only performed abortions up until about between 16 and 18 weeks.
Okay.
So that was where we stopped.
What about I've heard that, these Planned Parenthood groups, they really target minority communities. Was that something that was going on with the organization in your area?
The clinic that I worked at was in Bryan College Station, which is a pretty affluent area, college town. Texas A&M is there. So we didn't see it specifically in our community, but if we do look at the numbers across the country, we do see that about 79% of their abortion facilities are in minority neighborhoods. So that's definitely a business decision for them. If you look at the rates of people who are on Medicaid and other title cash grant programs, the majority of them are minorities, and so they're going to go into neighborhoods where they can get the most money from the government.
And there's a scene in the movie Unplanned, which is coming out in theaters this weekend, that where the person says basically, you're dealing with one of the most powerful organizations in the world. Where does that come from, that idea? How does Planned Parenthood play that role? Is it because of the power they have and influence and lobbying in Congress?
Well, they're essentially a government organization. They're receiving about more than $500 million of our tax money every year. They're funded by people like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, George Soros. The wealthiest people in the world support them. They have very powerful lobbyists and attorneys. Just look at the legislative efforts that we have seen be passed because of their influence. So they are indeed an extremely powerful operation in our country.
Do you see what is the most effective alternative to help end the widespread practice of abortion? Is it legislation? Is it defunding Planned Parenthood? Technology? What do you think is the best strategy going forward to really get rid of this scourge so people can heal?
I don't know if there's any one way to do it effectively. I think it takes, it's like sort of like a three-legged stool, right? So you've got to have all of the parts working together. So legislation is certainly an important part. Advocacy, going in front of abortion facilities, praying peacefully, offering resources is a huge part of that puzzle. Reaching out to abortion clinic workers, but also then the resources part of that puzzle is extremely important. So supporting pregnancy resource centers who are able to provide resources to women and men and families who are in crisis. They also provide post-abortive healing programs for those who have been affected by abortion. So it really, it takes all three of those components for us to really make an impact in our culture.
Well, Abby Johnson, it's been great speaking with you. I want everyone to go check out the movie Unplanned. it's something that you should bring the family to. I think it's appropriate for a certain. What age group would you say is appropriate for the children?
I would say teenagers, definitely 13 and up,
Okay.
should be seeing this film. My daughter, who's 12, who knows a lot about abortion, saw the film and she was fine. But I would say definitely 13 and up should be seeing this film.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your story. And we recommend everyone check out Unplanned. So go to unplannedfilm.com. And thanks again, Abby. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. We'll be right back with our Science and News segment on News Radio 93.1 WFLA. A Neighbor's Choice is back, and I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornoski, in the house. The problems we have, they're not that difficult. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure them out. But just in case, in studio once again is our chief science advisor, physicist Dr. Yu.
Thank you, David, for having me again.
So good to see you. I'm glad you've stopped by in the neighborhood. Always love hearing from you. You've always got new secrets, new dazzling insights into the history and the reality of our physical world. And I always love hearing your new nuggets of wisdom. So I wanted to dive into some of the interesting stories. I was interested, you, of course, have a very penetrating overview theory that really makes sense of the natural world in a really profound way, and it makes sense for a lot of anomalies. And so you shared with me a story that just came out about they're trying to go and get on NASA's trying to go after this asteroid, right?
Yes, this is a NASA first mission to collect samples on asteroid called a bamboo. So this is that was launched in September 8th, 2016.
Okay. 2016. So it took 3 years.
More than 3 years, but it arrived December last year.
Is it? So where is it at in the solar system?
Oh, it is between Earth and Mars.
Okay.
It is between Earth and Mars. However, took 27 months to reach to that.
It's like a little probe.
So yeah, we call the spacecraft. Is a probe, but it has a small craft where it descended, from the mothership, descended to the asteroid Bennu on the surface and collect sample and bring back. So total trip planned for 7 years. For 2 years, take 2 years and 7 months, 27 months to reach there. So a little bit more, than 2 years to reach them. And the plan will be orbit the Bennu asteroid for 1 year, of course, including survey and collect sample, and then take about 5 years coming back.
So this is the first time we're getting this close of a look at the asteroid. At this close.
At this close. How close it is? Eventually, we'll be landing on the surface to collect sample.
Wow.
So that's a historical.
So this, and when are we planning to land on it? Do they have a date or a plan?
It depends on the survey and select the best time. They have not have a concrete date, but the whole plan is, reach in December 3rd last year and orbit about 1 year. During that time, we'll collect sample, right? And we'll return to Earth in 2023. So total trip will be 7 years. There's a reason for why it takes that so long, because the asteroid Bennu will have a cycle of every 6 years, about 6 years around closer to Earth. So we wanted to wait until it fly back near the Earth, and then we're coming back.
Now, what's interesting about the landing is that it's opened up some mysteries that people are a little confused about. And the news headlines I've read, they're saying they're a little concerned about how they're going to land because they thought that the asteroid's surface was going to be smooth, right?
Yes, that's some kind of surprise to original plan. We're assuming because of the size of the asteroid, it's only about 500 meters in diameter. Okay, 500 meters. So that means it's just the size is basically a little bit taller than Empire Space Building. Empire.
State Building.
Empire
Yeah.
State Building with included the antenna.
Yeah.
So just a little taller than that. So how could this such a small, basically small space rock, how can you hold, gravity is not enough to hold dust or small rocks on the surface, on the rockish surface, right? So we're assuming it's just like a smooth river rock. That's the original thing. So the landing device try to say grab and use a little thrust, bumping them, collect sample, like shooting a little bullets to them, collect sample,
Right.
use a collector to them. However, now the real shape and the surface, to the surprise, the shape is not like looking from far away, look like circular, like a moon or Earth's circular shape. It's a diamond shape.
Huh.
And more like a square. So that is number one, the odd shape. And the number two, the surface full of the small rocks, dust. You can tell.
It's dusty. It's dirty.
Right.
It's like it's been collecting a lot of debris along the way. So why is it collecting dirt and all this stuff? Why would it be collecting a bunch of material along the way on
the
its surface? That's the big question, folks. We're speaking with Dr. Yu. He's a physicist, aerospace engineer. He's my chief science advisor on this program to dissect all kinds of innovative ideas. And we're wanting to know, why is it that this asteroid that we're about to land on for the first time in history, it's so filled with dirt and debris? We thought it was supposed to be smooth because that's what gravity would say, right?
That's right.
Gravity would say it's smooth. Why? Just to recap.
Oh, because the gravity force is so small. It takes entire Earth.
Okay, because it's the size of the Empire State Building.
Yes.
So why would it be able to have something collecting to it? Because gravity wouldn't be strong enough.
Gravity proportional to the mass
Right.
of the
Too weak.
asteroid. Because the gravity is so weak, it cannot hold sand, small rocks on the surface. Just the gravity force not enough. That's something my theory actually predicted. So for such asteroids, in order to orbit around the solar system, so just for gravity, that's not enough.
So what is it?
Magnetic force. If you look at it closely, the latest picture, it is just like magnets grab lots of dust, iron
Like
particles.
iron filings. yeah.
Iron particles.
Yeah.
So I said, oh my goodness, that's another proof to the say, basically it's the so-called gravity. That's a secret, that's an unknown, a mystery in all the science. So what gravity is? And my theory predict that gravity is actually just the attraction of magnetic force.
So the asteroid does not have a gravity field, it has a magnetic attraction.
That's right. How do we know this one? Because if you use gravity equation, you calculate that that's not enough to hold the particles. Right now we observed, and the small rocks on the surface, it cannot hold them. So that's why all the calculation assuming this is a smooth rock.
So if gravity was the force that the asteroid had, it'd be smooth. But now, according to your theory, you predicted it to be this way. It's a dirty, dusty iron filing, like a magnet that's been pulling up all kinds of iron filings, right?
It has to have a magnetic force. Other force will be not enough.
Wow.
Of course, the nuclear force is only act within.
So those little
side of the
asteroids, they're cubical, they're square, like a square?
looks like just like a square size, square shape. So that's an odd shape.
And it's
also
dusty?
The surface is rockish and dusty. Yes.
And it's magnetic. So it's like a little magnet. Do you think?
If not, the magnetic force, gravity force will not be enough to hold them on surface. So that's left only one force available, electromagnetic force, because the nuclear force only effective within the size of a nucleus. That means tens of thousands millions of times smaller than atom, right? So that's why that another evidence say the gravity force actually is only a part of a magnetic attraction.
Dr. Yu, we'll be right back. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. We're exploring mysteries of science. You're hearing them revealed live today on A Neighbor's Choice. Hold on just a second. A Neighbor's Choice Radio. I'm David Gornoski, and we're exploring the voyages of the great, beautiful blue Earth, as well as the vastness of space. And we're unlocking the secrets of the universe like no one else does. And we're with Dr. Yu, my chief science advisor, on our Science and You segment every Thursday evening, where we explore sacred cows of physics, mysteries of science that people have not been able to figure out, and you get to hear them figured out live on radio or online if you're watching on the live stream. You get to see it happen, unfold right now. So whether you're a student at USF or you're a family driving home from Magic Kingdom, Universal Studios, maybe you're someone who's a lifelong learner, always wanting to know, what is the world made of? How does it work? Are the textbook answers sold and solid and ready to go forever? Or is there a better explanation that will give us an insight into the nature of our universe and what's possible in it? Well, we're the guys for you. Dr. Yu just explained to us how asteroids are not they're not a bearer of gravity, but actually magnetic attraction. And that we know that because they look like a magnet that's got a bunch of iron filings all stuck to it. That the force of gravity is not strong enough for the size of this asteroid that we're flying near.
That's
with
right.
With NASA. The force of gravity, the way we know it's calculated, is not strong enough of a force to be what's going on with the asteroids. It's actually magnetic force which is guiding its path. Correct?
Yes. So you can imagine. So for the gravity force, take entire Earth to hold a particle sand on Earth, right?
Right.
But what happens if you use magnets? If the sand particles has any iron content, use a magnet, you can pick up all the sand right away, very small size. So then I try to use this one to say magnetic force are 10 to the 36 power higher than gravity force for hydrogen atom. So that means how many? You have to have a 26 zeros times higher than gravity force. So gravity force is so small. So in this case, all the gravitational calculation is the surface cannot hold the dust, the small particles, because gravity force is just not enough. But if you look at the latest picture, I saw that a few days ago, you can see it on the surface. The rock, not just a lot of rocks and the small particles, full dust on the surface. That's how made the landing fairly difficult.
Right.
Because they're afraid that we'll kick out all the rocks,
so
damage the particle.
Because they were using the textbook, which is the gravity is what's going on with the asteroids. They thought it'd be smooth, easy landing. Now, but if we see it for fresh eyes, we can see, oh, actually, it's magnetism, electromagnetic force, and so that's why it's pulling in all this dust and dirt and debris, making it a difficult landing for the probe, the spacecraft, when it lands on this asteroid, the size of the Empire State Building. I wonder if King Kong's on the other side of it. But I wanted to get into something else. What about comets, though? Comets are interesting. I've always been excited about comets because they have light, right? They're pretty and they fly around. And I never, it's always confusing to me. Why do they have light? Asteroids don't. So give us some insight.
Oh, okay. The first of all, the mystery is comet. Comet has a huge fire tails, right? The tail sometimes could long as like 1 light year.
Wow,
very long,
big tail.
Big tail. So the mystery, the question is, how could the comet create those kind of big tail? How could that happen? The current textbook answer would be, say, comet made by dirty snowball. They said comet basically is ice, made by ice. Okay, on the surface like a dirty snowball. Whenever closer to the sun, to the stars, right, in the high temperature, so it create water, ice create evaporation. So those vapors of water vapors reflect lights from the star. So that's
from the comet.
From a comet.
The star that like the sun.
Yeah. The comet basically create a water vapor because it's ice made, right? So create a water vapor. And once closer to star, and those water vapor reflect the sunlight, the starlight. So that's why we saw the tail.
That's the current textbook.
That's the current book. I thought that this is a completely. I believe that should not be true. But you think about it. The comet exists as old as the solar system, say 4.6 billion years or 4.5 billion years. So if it goes through the sun so many times and very close, if there's a water vapor to evaporate, how many times could this the comet can hold the water, right? It will be evaporated a long time ago. Especially you look at how long the tail size is, right? If you look at that long, probably that comet cannot even hold that many materials because for the example, that's called the Rosetta mission, the comet 67P. So that's the mission. That's a European mission. They launched 2014. They took 12 years to reach them on September 29th. 2016. That's the time they reached to the.
So tell us about what the comet, what we've actually found about the comet.
Okay, so we did find the comet. We did land the roller, probe on the comet.
Okay,
and we find out it's not dirty snowball.
What is it?
There's no ice, no drop of water whatsoever. It looks like a dark, hard rock, very dark, as dark as coal, because as dark as coal, as hard as a rock.
Is it like an asteroid or bigger or smaller?
The size, that one bigger than this one, this Bennu. That one take about 2 to 3 miles.
Is it dusty? Does it have dusty and debris on it like the asteroid?
Actually, they do.
It does?
They do have a dusty. They do have a lot of rocks. But it's a rockish surface.
Sandy.
Sandy surface. It has, and also the shape is different than this one. Say this is basically a diamond shape or square.
That's an asteroid. Is that
asteroid? Shape? More like Earth, but that one looks like a duck.
Looks like a duck.
This is a plastic duck.
Has the body of a duck, huh?
Yeah, duck. The odd shape.
So they should call it Daffy.
Yes. Okay, that one.
Daffy comet.
So now I will try to explain where comes the tail. So if it's not a water vapor, there's no water vapor there. So if not, so what created lights? Because my prediction before the launch prediction is those comet is a highly magnetized material. Basically, it's giant magnets, and the rockish surface and the irregular shape make this comet tumbling in space.
So it's spinning rapidly.
Tumbling, and also when it's a rockish surface, when they close to the sun, high density, material, fluids around the sun, create a huge high vibration. So the so-called those lights is a magnetic oscillation created through this rockish comet cross the dense solar I would say fluids.
So that creates the flare, the fire.
The fire. So here is the secret to say all light is nothing more just high oscillation of magnetic field, just oscillation, vibration of magnetic particles in the space. So once high comet goes through the nearby Earth, nearby the sun, solar has a huge collection of dust in space. So those are highly charged particles, so create high oscillation.
Another prediction with Dr. Yu's insight has proven to be true. He predicted what asteroids would be like. Conventional textbooks were wrong. He was right. He predicted what comets would be like. We went to him. The textbooks were wrong. He was right. You only get it on A Neighbor's Choice right now, folks. We'll see you next week on Monday for our Mega Monday 7 to 9 show. Godspeed. I'm David Gornoski. Good night.